Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Governance Life. This is to be the last in our series leading up to Governance Week 2024. We've had an exceptional week of interviews, starting with Cecile Watson out of Jamaica, where she spoke about Board Accelerator and an incredibly exciting initiative she has out of Jamaica. Then we also spoke with Gail Figaro from Trinidad and Tobago, Alistair Rowe from Belize, Camille Hayes from Barbados, Simone Francois Whittier, Dion Chamberlain, Novak Gowandan, Faye Lopez Calimo, and yesterday we had Ali Matalon, also from Jamaica. And today we have an extremely special guest, and I am now recognizing, Nigel, that we have not added your designation next to your name, so I will fix that even as we speak, because Nigel Romano is our beloved chairman of the Caribbean Corporate Governance Institute. So I'm extremely excited to have him join us for this, our final live heading up to Governance Week 2024. And as we were chatting just briefly, Nigel, so Governance Week 2024 is our 5th year that we have successfully executing this week-long conference. And we've been really, truly lucky to have some amazing opening keynotes over the years, starting with Professor Bob Garrett, who is now our global ambassador for good reason.
Exactly.
Yeah, so your thoughts on how we have developed over the years with Governance Week?
Well, I think based on all that has happened over the last 5 years, it has been a crazy 5 years in many respects. Your joining the Institute was a blessing, and I have to thank you for all the hard work that you have put in. And then we had, of course, the whole COVID experience. And thankfully, we had the technology available to us to really continue what you started and to take it to different levels. I always remember the saying that the death of distance, and COVID made, and with the technology available to us, COVID in fact killed the distance and the necessity of having to be in the same room, in the same on the same continent, in the same time zone. So, it has been a very exciting journey. We have learned a lot, and we have had the benefit of the collaboration with so many experienced professionals. I'll use the word experience because this is not, the Caribbean Corporate Governance Institute is not about theory, it's about practice. And we have had the benefit of practitioners. And I've also benefited tremendously. One of the other things that we benefited from was the ISO 37000 release on governance, which I think is an excellent document, providing the foundation for any governance initiative. And of course, for me, critical to that is starting with purpose, the importance of purpose, the importance of values, before you start to talk about what you're going to do to achieve that purpose. So for me, it has been a tremendous 5 years. I think we are about to take off to even greater heights. But we have laid a solid foundation.
Yes, thank you, Nigel. And I mean, it's truly been an honor having you chairman during this period, because your guidance too has been really instrumental in allowing us to take the kind of leaps and bounds that we have made. But as you mentioned, the technology and closing the distance, I recall when we were doing our very first governance week, and we reached out to Professor Garrett in the UK. And for Professor Garrett, he was very willing, but he was like, he had never used Zoom before. So
Right, right.
who was assisting me at the time. Christy and I did a dry run with him to teach him, how to manipulate the different icons and stuff. And then in preparation for our opening ceremony, he became familiar with Zoom, and he stayed several of the days he attended.
Yes,
He
with the
told
whole
us,
day.
and yes, he said our introduction of Zoom to him enabled him to have meetings with people on so many continents during
Hmm.
the week that we were having Governance Week. And so through his encouragement as well, we started the global conference because he
Yes.
felt that this technology allowed for that kind of thing.
Hmm.
Yes, and
That
along
has been
with, go ahead.
I mean, there are many negatives, I suppose, coming out of that COVID experience, but there are also a lot of positives. And that ability to collaborate and to work remotely, but to remain connected was a critical part of that.
Mhm. So, and also what Professor Garrett brought to us was some really amazing connections. Like I
Hmm.
recall, I couldn't imagine how we could have topped, having someone like Professor Garrett as our opening keynote the first year. But
Yes,
then second year, he recommended that I get in touch with Professor Movin King out of the
yes.
Tim Courts in South Africa, and the King accepted, which was so amazing. Following him, then we had Charlotte Vallet, who was the former
Hmm.
chair of the Institute of Directors out of the UK. And last year, we were so thrilled to have Nandi Mandela,
Yes.
granddaughter of Nelson Mandela, serve as our opening keynote. So we have had some really fabulous governance weeks over the last 4 years. So this,
Hmm.
our fifth year, I'm equally thrilled. We have Professor John Elkington.
Hmm.
And Professor Elkington, I would say, he is so synonymous with sustainability. His
Hmm.
concept of the triple bottom line of people, planet, and profit
And
has
profit,
so
yeah.
influenced the thinking of executives, I would say more than any other thing, to move us away from this profit maximization concept, which had ruled business for decades before.
Hmm. Well, the point is that if you're going to talk about short-term profitability or short-term profitability maximization, it's a much different conversation from a long-term, sustainable look at profit. I mean, for me, you cannot run a business unprofitably. You will limit the lifespan of the business, and you have to keep going back to shareholders for money. And then if you're not successful, you won't get that money. But if you build for sustainability so that you take into consideration that it's not about the shareholder alone, it's about the the employees, the team that works in the organization, the suppliers that contribute their products and their services to the organization, the customers that you serve, and the communities in which you serve.
Mhm.
If one does not take all those into consideration, the sustainability of the organization could very well be uh, at risk.
Mhm.
And therefore, you need to take all those into consideration in a way that Stephen Covey, talks about win-win. So
Mhm.
the organization wins, the stakeholders that are involved in the organization also win. So you have that win-win focus. So without that, you're not talking sustainability, and you're not talking long-term profitability.
Mhm.
Um, for me, the other critical thing is, as I said, with ISO 37000, being very clear about why the organization exists, um, and what are the guiding principles, what are the values that will inform how that organization delivers on its mandate. So very clear.
Right. So then let's take that directly to your role as chairman. So
Mhm.
when you sit with boards, and this I'm sure is something that a lot of chairmen need to consider, how do you impart that to your management team, who then now need to be able to demonstrate a commitment to that long-term sustainability, but who will be measured against short-term objectives in terms of their profit margin. I remember reading how in Europe this has been such a challenge. A lot of CEOs have said it's a wonderful to talk about it, but the reality is
Mhm.
it affects my bottom line, and I will be finding another job pretty soon. That's the reality.
Mm.
So then how as governance do we build that culture? How do you guide the management team to know what is the way to straddle? Because I agree with you. Profitability is important. If we are not
Mhm.
bringing revenue and you can't pay your bills, then clearly you're not going to have the kind of impact that you would like.
Mhm.
So there does need to be both focus, but we are still struggling with trying to get enough organizations to look at social impact and environmental impact so that we deal with the climate emergency. What then you see as the role of the chairman in helping to move this conversation forward?
Well, for me, the chairman is the first among equals on the board of directors. And as the chair of the board, he or she will look at the agenda. Where do we want to go? How are we going to get there? And very clearly, again, are we being faithful to our purpose? And are we being true and loyal to our values? So there are as I said, there are guidelines, there are principles to be followed. We are not going to make money to the detriment or by ignoring those principles. And therefore, given those guidelines, given that purpose, you have to be very clear about who we are creating value for and what value are we creating for them. And then, of course, we have to organize our operations in such a way that we capture enough of that value to keep the organization going sustainably. That's where the profit comes from. Um, so for me, it's very clear that the board is the keeper of the values and the purpose, and then holding the management team, the executive, responsible for execution, accountable. Very critical there is measurement. If you don't have the right measures, how do you know if you're on track? And also very important is ensuring that there are leading indicators, leading measures that we can be looking at to tell us, are we on the right track? Again, I'm a big fan of the balanced scorecard approach, and a lot of people um, talk about the balanced scorecard, but implementing it is not easy. And being very clearly, if you use, I am also a big fan of strategy maps that very clearly show, okay, these are the, let's call it profit or revenue objectives. And then how do we deliver those? Who are our customers? Who do we serve? What value, as I said, do we provide for those customers? And how do we price the value that we create so that, again, we can capture enough of the value creation for ourselves? And then, of course, you drop down into the how process. How do we deliver that value? What informs our operations so that we are as efficient as possible in creating that value? And then, of course, the capacity, the people, the culture, the systems, the technology, whether it's AI or whatever, that we have in place to deliver. So once you approach it like that, and you have the right measures in place that you can track progress, leading measures, right? So how you treat your customers, how you treat your employees and team members, how you implement the various systems and processes, all very critical. If you don't have those in place, you're going to be in trouble. So in my role as chairman, you set the tone, you make sure that the right metrics are in place so that you can track how you're doing towards those lagging indicators, whether it's profit or revenue or expenses or what, because they're all lagging indicators. By the time you see them, you can't do anything about them.
Yes.
You have to focus on the leading indicators, what Covey refers to as the player scorecards.
All right. Nice. So that was a really good guidance in terms of the relationship with the executive management and how do we ensure that there's that proper alignment between what the board's expectations are and how it's executed on the management side. So I want to go to a very difficult area now. So I'm preparing you.
Go ahead.
This is a relationship among board members. One of the things that Professor Garrett speaks to, what he calls the great social silence, is the fact that a lot of directors come into the boardroom with no training in governance and sometimes very little understanding as to the role and function of the board itself. So when you're the chairman, it is your responsibility, though you are first among equals, your responsibility to ensure that the directors are able to contribute to the effective governance of that organization. So I want to ask you specifically, how do you get directors to be able to, one, be a lot more aware of their role and function, and two, the critical area, this balance between is the board's role primarily to ensure compliance of the organization, or should board members be also contributing their skills and expertise towards helping the performance of the organization? I wonder it was a bit of a question.
I don't see board members as executives. They're there to provide guidance, and hopefully you have a board that is balanced in the sense of their skills, their experience, their expertise, so that they can ask the right questions and offer the right guidance. But getting involved in the day-to-day, no. That's not the role of the board. The board is there to set the tone, to set the guiding principles, and ensure that they keep the whole management accountable. So one of the things that we're going to do is say, okay, this year, this is what we're going to, this is our agenda for, we'll have the lagging indicator, the profit target, let's say. And then management, the executive, the CEO and his executive team will come to the board with their strategy, with their plan for achieving that objective. Then that's when the board has the conversation, agrees, yes, this is the right strategy. Okay, how will we monitor your progress? And how often will you report to us so that we can ensure that you're on track? Or if you're off track, how can we help you get back on track? But it's not doing, it's advising, it's coaching, it's holding them accountable so that you keep pushing them. But the executive is the big pusher. So when we meet, I like to have the executive team in the board, unless there are matters that need to be discussed that involve members of that team. But I want the executive in the meeting so they can hear firsthand what the conversation is, that they themselves, the ones responsible, the CFO, the chief people officer, the chief operations officer, the chief technology officer, they are there to respond directly when questions arise. And the board then gets a feel for the quality of the team.
So yes, but how then do you manage if there are directors who have different points of view? So let me deal directly with managing board conflict, because this is one of the dynamics that usually can derail things at a board level. So Professor Bob Tricker, writes about board dynamics in his textbook, and the fact that sometimes you have directors who develop small cliques, and those who come with different objectives. And so how, as a chairman, then would you manage scenarios like that?
So I tell people all the time, I mine for conflict and I farm for dissent. If you have an issue, you put it on the table in the board meeting. I will be looking at your body language, I'll be looking at your expression, and my function there is to bring it out, put it on the table, we're going to discuss, we're going to debate, and then we're going to decide. But having, how should I put it? Sidebar conversations and coffee shop around the coffee machine conversations this is not where the board meets. The board meets in the boardroom and we discuss it in the boardroom. If you have an issue, you have to have the courage to raise it there, to make your case, to defend your case, and to accept the views of various board members. When there is conflict, then the chair will make the decision. So
Right.
it's as I said, you have to have your say. You don't necessarily have to have your way.
Right. And of course, as you say, you mind for dissent, because conflict can sometimes be a very healthy thing. It's
Of
just
course.
how it's managed in the boardroom. And it's important for us to raise that particular point, because after all, our theme for Governance Week is not just regenerative capitalism, which is going to look at social and environmental impact, but it's also promoting exceptional governance for small states. And what deters our governance? To a great extent, it's our culture. It's the way we manage our disagreements with each other. How do we ensure that we can pool our resources and our capabilities so that we can achieve more, rather than we are engaged in fighting over a small pie?
No, exactly. The other thing for me is I don't have all the answers. So again, I want to go back to my mentor, Stephen Covey, seek first to understand. Lead with questions. Help me to understand, explain what's going on. Why do you think this way? And being open, really shutting up and listening for learning, not for responding. Very, very important in getting the best out of a diverse team.
Yes. Okay, sounds good. So we are coming towards the end of our half hour. See, it just flew by, Nigel. Right. So I want to share with persons who would be viewing this that Nigel normally moderates the panel discussion for our opening ceremony. This year, however, he would be flying and would be just joining us on the phone to bring greetings for a bit. Our moderator for the panel discussion would be another of CCGI's directors, that is Camille Facey out of Jamaica. But we are going to have a really awesome opening ceremony this Sunday, Sunday, starting at 2:30 p.m. on Zoom. So it's going to be very easy for persons to join in from wherever they are. And we also want to say a very special thank you to our sponsors for Governance Week. We have two gold sponsors. First, Citizens Bank and Massey Limited. We have 5 bronze sponsors: Angostura Limited, Republic Bank Limited, National Gas Company of Trinidad and Tobago, PwC, and G.A. Rowe and Sons out of Belize.
Mm-hmm.
We're really thankful to all of these persons who have contributed financially to helping us be able to put together a really awesome Governance Week. And Nigel, I want to say what a privilege it has been to really work with you over these last 5 years. I'm happy with all that we have achieved, but as
Mm-hmm.
you shared, it was a lot of work, but for me, it wasn't really work because I so love what we do. As you speak about the purpose of organizations, I truly believe in the purpose of CCGI, that we can and should do the most we can to help improve governance practices. Because ultimately, if we are able to improve the way in which we direct organizations and organizations are better run, it's going to mean people are happier in the
Mm-hmm.
organizations. It's going to mean a better society for all of us. And so it's so easy to connect and align with this purpose that we have for CCGI. So Nigel, I want to thank you for today's interview. If you want to take a few seconds and probably share, any thoughts you may have for either Governance Week coming up, where you will be serving as moderator for
Mm-hmm.
several of the days, or else any thoughts in general about the future of CCGI. Anyone, I'll be happy to
No,
give you the floor.
and for me, Kamla, it has been a pleasure, a real pleasure working with you. You have been a godsend, if you will, for the CCGI. And we have a lot of work to do. I think we have, again, made really good progress.
Mhm.
But so many organizations seem to be rudderless, if you will. They don't know why they exist. They don't have really clear guiding principles. So they are bouncing back and forth and just moving nowhere, getting nowhere. So for me, that's where we can help. And the more we meet with people, the more we educate, um, hopefully we will make some little difference as these organizations progress. So I am enjoying the experience with you. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you very much, Nigel. So thank you, everyone, as we bring this, our final live before Governance Week 2024 to an end. Look out for Professor John Elkington delivering the opening keynote this coming Sunday from 2:30 to 4:30 p.m. on Zoom. And he will be speaking about regenerative capitalism, and specifically some opportunities for how we improve governance for small states. So thank you all, and we will see you on Sunday for Governance Week 2024. Bye.